Hi everyone, thank you for watching. So today is going to be a carnivore video about my body transformation or body recomposition journey. If you're very interested to know, how I started out into the whole physique manipulation with diet and exercise, please continue watching. I started keto about 7 years ago, and I'm currently now 2.5 years carnivore. If you follow along my journey since day one, I'm sure you have seen that there was a phase where I started taking my health and wellness a little bit more seriously. But when I first started out, it was all about looking fit. It was a very physical thing more than the wellness. When I first started out, having a strong or fit looking physique was very important to me. So this was many years ago, and I have never really stopped that fitness journey ever since. I think that was, you guys should know by now if you follow me, that it's my second passion. So back in 2013, that is when I first started realizing that, I want to look stronger. I want to start exercising to see what my body can do. And at the beginning, I was really like, maybe some of you here, like, I could not imagine myself wearing sports outfit and working out in a gym. People change, people get inspired. So I think that's what happened to me in 2013. I have tried the standard bodybuilding diet where I went very low fat, still high carbs. I have no idea what carbs could do to you. But I'm not demonizing carbs, because I do see a place for it depending on your metabolic health and where you're at. I also tried the standard, like, shredding, where it's super low calories. I was in that phase as well, and right now, if you show me any kind of meal, I can be a my fitness pal. I'm like a walking fitness pal, which is not a good skill to have. I also tried a vegetarian diet for a bit. That was horrible. And different diets here and there that brought me to where I'm at today. I'm gonna go through this timeline. I'll share with you some pictures, of course, along the way, and I will just quickly bring you through like what I've done in that particular timeline, what my body was looking like, what are the transformation that I've seen, and some learning points that I got along the way. Anyway, so let's get into it. Alright, so let's begin with 2013. That's when I first started. My diet was pretty much a low fat, high carbs, as I mentioned. So what do I eat on a low fat, high carb diet was that all I knew and all I was researching about, in terms of getting lean and getting a fit body, was to go everything low fat. So I would do the standard bodybuilding diet where I would go for oatmeal in the morning with blueberries, and then I will go for like your phage. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but that brand that all of them will be using, the fitness influencers, where it's super low fat or zero fat yogurt. Everything is just low fat or zero fat, and I was eating things like quinoa and canned tuna. So I wasn't really like low ever on protein. I was doing a lot of low fat Greek yogurt. I was doing quinoa. I was doing tuna. I wasn't really eating beef. I was eating a lot of chicken because that is what is being promoted, and a lot of fruits as well. My body, this is when I first started out. I was I consider myself to be skinny fat because I was still wearing a very petite size like clothing. But the thing is, I have, if I were to like pinch around my body parts, right, like my arms and my legs, my thighs, I look skinny, like small, but there will be all these like loose, like jiggly bits, which if you get to know about body composition, is that sometimes when you have higher lean mass, it feels a lot denser, But when you have higher body fat, you can still look very skinny, but it's just all around your muscle is just fats, which it doesn't look very toned, it's not tight. That was me, and I was looking to not lose weight. I was looking to have a more defined or toned physique. That was my goal, and I was still eating like sugar, but not too high in sugar. And I was eating like honey, fruits, so then I started getting inspired with workouts where you can find on YouTube. People were crazy about high intensity interval training, home workouts. So I started going into that, and that's when I start to see things change from there. Yeah, so I like that, I was looking more and more toned, but I was still having somewhat of a skin issue, like a little bit of like eczema flare up here and there, but it wasn't anything major, and I was in my early 20s. So in your early 20s you can get away with many things, right? So and I was drinking like iced coffee with a bunch of sugar in it. I was completely fine. I didn't have brain fog. I didn't have all those crashes where people need to sleep after lunch. I didn't have those issues, but I do know that I was a lot more emotional, and my mood tends to be very irritable and erratic most of the time. I will be very calm, happy, and hyper, and then I will crash and feel very depressed. So that was interesting. Now, moving on to 2014. So this is when I started, learning about fats are not as bad as you think. I started doing a little bit of moderate fat, moderate carb, that whole paleo lifestyle, or clean eating. So if you scroll back all the way in my Instagram, I didn't delete any of those pictures actually. You would see that I would be eating a meal that I would hashtag clean eating, eat clean, paleo. So yeah, it's still, there's some form of carbs, but it's not your processed kind of, or like super low fat kind of meals. And at that point of time, I would say that I started dropping sugar very instantly. I think I probably read it somewhere that sugar is very toxic, and I think naturally when you go into paleo, all these things will fall into place. I started cutting out sugar, and it was pretty fast for me. I obviously substituted with what was trending, is still trending now, back then, all your sugar substitute, like your sweeteners like stevia, xylitol. I was like, this is the best invention in the world. Like, who needs sugar when it's so bad for you? You can just go for your sweeteners. I was doing it a little bit too much because most of my meals looked like healthy desserts, which is not very good. That would also mean that I wasn't eating enough animal protein, for sure. So at that point of time, I have to look at my notes here because it's quite a history back then. So but what my body looked like is that obviously when you cut out sugar, it's one of the best things that you can do. You will see really drastic improvements, not just mentally, your mood becomes better, but I instantly looked a lot leaner. The muscles that I was working on started to show more. I looked more and more fit. I started to get a lot of comments from people around me saying that, oh, what diet are you on, what program are you in, you look so strong. Yeah, so that was a phase. And I think when things worked out very well for you, you started to amplify it. You think that more is more. The more you do it, the better. So I think that was something that I had to learn along the way, that sometimes you need to moderate and not go too extreme. But that's my personality. My exercise routine during this period was pretty intense. I got very strong. I got a lot of energy from this paleo experiment, and I naturally did more HIIT training. I could even like, this was in my mid 20s, yeah. So I was still very young. My metabolism was great, and I was doing 2 workouts in a day. Obviously, not every day, but I could do that. So, but the thing is, I started to realize that my period became irregular. More skin issues came up. I started feeling itchy all over my body during nighttime, and then obviously that caused me to have more insomnia where I didn't sleep well. I would always wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, and things started to show in different areas. Like, I was very, very happy with my physique because I have really like defined abs, but I was I was so distracted by the fact that I have abs, that it was such an achievement, right, which is not what you're supposed to be focusing on, and that I was neglecting all the other wellness in my entire lifestyle. So things like not sleeping enough, irregular period, I started not noticing those things, which actually that was my body trying to tell me that, hey, you know what, this may not be working well for you. But I'm not saying paleo is not great. Paleo is definitely way better than your processed foods, or your standard American diet. But what I'm trying to share with you is not just about diet or exercise, but you need to also look at the other environmental factors around you. So at that point of time, I wasn't someone that had a proper routine where I would make sure that I sleep at 10 o'clock, and I was exercising a little bit too much. I was doing a lot of HIIT training without proper rest, and I wasn't aware that protein needs to be prioritized when you are building muscles. So moving on to 2016, this is when things started to get very exciting for me, because this is when I found keto, right? And it was Dr. Berg who was very popular in that space. He still is. And then there was Thomas DeLauer, and they were talking about how going 20 grams or less carbs, and then having moderate protein and super high fat is going to help you in many, many issues. For example, insulin resistant. So why was I targeting that? It's because that is when I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. That is a mouthful. Where you have irregular period, and you would naturally have more hair loss. And I was diagnosed with PCOS, and then during this keto experiment, that was when I was in early keto, I even had like this autoimmune attack of alopecia, which is like a sudden bald patch would appear at the back of my head, because I think I was just too stressed out. I wasn't nourishing myself properly in terms of prioritizing protein. Everything that I know now from Carnivore and the importance of protein, I wasn't I didn't know about that when I was doing keto. All I knew was you need to eat 7 cups of vegetable, leafy greens, to make sure that you get all your nutrients, which is not. Yeah, so keto, I was on the very standard 75% fats, 20% protein, and 5% carbs. So meaning to say my carbs are always 20 grams of less or less. And this is where I developed the skill of becoming a walking macro calculator. I was using my MyFitnessPal so much because I was always trying to maintain my perfect keto macro. It's 75 25. I really don't know how I did that at a point of time, but I was very passionate about it. When you're so passionate about something, I think you are going to go all the way to make things happen, right? So what was I eating? Every breakfast I would it was my own recipe. I would do up like keto pancakes, There was a lot of almond flour, hazelnut flour, all this very high fat like nuts and seeds and flour substitute, you know, that I will make into pancakes. I will make like keto ice cream with coconut cream and vanilla extract. I will use a lot of stevia, and at that point of time I was doing a lot of eggs and cheese. I've always been a sucker for dairy. I will always have cream cheese, mozzarella cheese in my salad. So that's always been my thing. And I started eating a lot more red meat, but I always lean towards salmon. It has always been my top choice since I was a kid, and so salmon is always my staple. But I started eating a lot more red meat. Then I did a lot of nut butter. So if you are ever someone that went into keto, you will know that eating a jar of nut butter is like your fat staple, because obviously keto, you need to be in higher fat in order to be in ketosis, right? That's the idea of keto. So I would do a lot of nut butter. I can finish like half a jar of the nut butter because I'm not eating carbs at all. That would be my energy. And that was a disaster, because at the beginning it was great because I have all these choices, you know, macadamia nut butter, pumpkin seed butter, and almond butter. That was like a staple. And I would do a lot of seed oil, so I would eat giant bowls of salad, and then I would have it drenched in olive oil. Oh yeah, now thinking back about it, I spent a lot of money in food, and I spent a lot of time making it compared to what I do now. Just buy a steak and put it in an air fryer and I'm done in 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, what was my body like? I'll get a picture somewhere here. I got comments that people are really like admiring this physique of mine at this point of time, because I felt like it was almost at the point of looking like I have really built my body to show its shape. I'm not like super skinny, or I'm not, you know, super muscular either. It was like a fine balance. But the thing is, I was really quite lean at the midsection. That this usually causes most women, not all, to have irregular cycle because you are super low in body fat. I never really went to did like a DEXA scan to know my body composition, but I knew that I was very low in body fat. Because if you were to, I'll try to find a picture somewhere. If you look at my back, you could see a lot of the definition. So overall I was pretty lean, and that is when I started having more histamine and digestive issues as well, because I was eating a lot of salad, eating my meal like a giant bowl of salad. People joke and say that I'm like a goat, you know, like a cow eating a bunch of grass. I remember those days. But yeah, then that's when I started getting into the space of checking my blood work, you know, buying the glucose meter to see what my ketones are at, where's my glucose level, my blood sugar level. Not recommended, because really it's just too stressful. So the fun part about this is that when I did my blood tests, I thought that this would help with my skin and my overall health. And that's when I learned about the importance of vitamin D, right? I did a blood test. I'll try to insert the test somewhere here, or maybe I'll do a separate video just talking about my blood work over the years, how it has improved. So particularly vitamin D was super low. It was like not even at the normal range, and it was being flagged out that I needed to fix my vitamin D, or I'm going to continue having a lot of skin issues. And that really just aligned nicely with the symptoms that I was having, you know, itchy skin, eczema here and there, and just, yeah, not good in terms of my skin. Yeah, so those are my experience when it comes to keto. It did help me at the beginning, but I would say in the first 3 or 4 years, keto was great. My mood improved, my energy level was there. I got the body composition that I want, but long term, I'm not sure if it's going to be ideal depending where you come from in your journey. So just remember that everyone is very different, and my journey is very different from you as well. This is just something, this is just another perspective, something for you to think about. So let's move on to where I'm at now, which is where I started Carnivore. In 2019, I'll insert a picture somewhere. This is when I started Carnivore, and why I went into Carnivore is that the digestive issues that I got from doing keto was becoming a little bit too much. Always have bloating, just indigestion, and I knew that in the back of my mind that this is not right. As much as they say eat lots of salad because it's good for you, I don't think it's normal for you to feel to bloat, to burp, to feel like you have stomach ache after your meal. It's not normal. I knew it from the start. I just didn't want to believe it, and I went on with it for a few years. So digestive issues became quite frequent, and that's when I started, my eczema started flaring up. I remember that horrific 3 months. My eczema usually starts at my this area, where it's a bit more moist. That's where you sweat a lot, right? Here will start to feel itchy, and then in the middle of the night I will start scratching myself. The next day I'll wake up and start to see like this whole area needs to be camouflaged because it looks like I have just injured myself. And then around my neck area, behind my ears, all the way to my face, my cheeks area. And then I would really have dehydrated, very dry skin overall. But that's when my eczema became really bad, because it traveled all the way up to my torso, and it was just red patches everywhere. It's people start to notice it, and it became quite an issue. Obviously I felt very insecure because it's not something that you can just use makeup to cover up your entire body. You would still see the very dry patches. I would be very itchy. I would not have proper sleep, and so I guess keto long term for me triggered a lot of my autoimmune issues. These are issues that I had when I was a kid, when I checked with my mom. I do have all this autoimmune eczema, asthma. It's like a alopecia. It's like a trio that comes in one package. Horrific. Okay, but you know what, I gotta live with it, right? But I can always do things to minimize or to manage it. So Carnivore was, I guess I was desperate. I was doing a lot of research on YouTube, listening to podcasts, and then because I was still following Dr. Berg, and then I saw an interview that he did together with Frank Tufano. I'm sure all of you who started Carnivore 2 years ago or more, you would come across this very interesting character, Frank Tufano. He has amazing skin and hair, and there was one particular video where he spoke about how he healed his skin issues and even acne. So that was when I started having acne flare up again, because I didn't want to go back into the route of Accutane, which was during my keto 2016 phase. I stopped Accutane and I didn't want to go back to it, but I started having like those cystic pimples again. And Frank Tufano spoke greatly about how to include beef liver, vitamin A, vitamin D, importance of it, and how it can help with your skin. So after watching one video, it became like a whole binge watching of his videos, and I started transforming my mindset, thinking that keto is not going to be it for me. I need to try Carnivore to see if I can manage all these issues. So it was totally crazy because I never knew that I would just be eating meat and nothing else. I remember the first day when I had my plate of meat, right? It was just meat and there was no 7 cups of vegetable. It looked very strange to me, and I was very worried about, going to the washroom. Like, would I be going to the washroom? But obviously, things settled in very quickly around the third month onwards. I started stabilizing, but of course, my personality is the kind that even if I go through some obstacle at the initial stage, I will always push it to give it a go, because I think it's from my background, knowing that when you try something new, there's always that adaptation, that discomfort at the beginning. So I did condition myself that things are not going to be smooth in the beginning. I just have to stick with it and try it out. At least I did my best, and I will find out whether it works for me or not. Yeah, I decided to use diet to fix all these autoimmune issues that I have. Obviously, I did that. I have succeeded, I think. It's been 2.5 years carnivore. But let's get back into it. My body recomposition back then was, I would say, you can see in this photo, I started having more of a muscular shape. Like, I would say that my midsection is still quite lean, but I developed more delt, upper body area, and my lower body, obviously my glutes was a lot more shapely. But that was also because I intentionally went to do a lot of glute exercises. That was a shape that I grew to love, that I wanted to have in order to create that balancing effect, like a strong shoulder and a strong hip kind of ratio. And I did a lot more heavy lifting, so naturally I think the muscles started growing from there. I definitely built a lot more lean mass. And going to the carnivore space, you will start to see all these influences. They would promote some kind of resistant training that goes hand in hand with eating higher protein. So I naturally went to that. But I would say in my first year being carnivore, I did experiment with higher fat, higher protein, but it was not a very consistent thing. I would try to go with how I feel, but I was doing a lot of fasting as well. So I would say that my body frame at that point is like in a few months I will have like a shapely glute, and then if I were to do a lot of prolonged fast, I will kind of lose that shape. I think it's losing muscle. I'm not sure, maybe I'm not eating enough protein, but that is one observation that I noticed. I wasn't necessarily very satiated in the beginning, because I think that is the adaptation phase that every early carnivore needs to go through. I did eat a lot of higher fats, but it wasn't super satiating at certain times, so I would need to try like higher protein. But I would say that sparkling water helped a lot in terms of digestion and in terms of making yourself feel full. I think if you come from a background of doing keto where you eat a lot of salad in the past, right, and you get that stretch in your tummy, like, ooh, I'm full, that physical feeling of fullness, you would, when you go to carnivore, feel very strange, because you will eat like a ton of meat, right, but you don't have that stretch. So you will think that you are not full, but sparkling water did help with that in the beginning. So that's one tip for you there. So like I said, first year I was still adapting, but I did do gradually in the end, right, after the adaptation phase, the early 2020, before this whole COVID pandemic happened, I started doing higher fat. I would really prioritize eating more fats, because I knew that with a lot of prolonged fasting during my first year or the first few months of carnivore, I still wasn't feeling very optimum, because I was still feeling very tired. I couldn't work out as much as I wanted to. So naturally, I was in the route of needing more energy, which means that I would require more animal fat. So my carnivore ratio eventually became higher fat, moderate protein, sometimes very low protein. So then I think all of you wanted to know here, and a lot of people spoke about this. Oh, I'm so afraid of going carnivore because what if I have weight gain, because I used to restrict my calories so much in the past. I would say this, if you see enough in the community, those that spoke up, a lot of them would not have this issue. If you don't fixate yourself with the scale, using numbers to see how your body changes, I think that would be very stressful, because I feel that it's so important for people to gain weight in terms of lean muscle mass, because muscles are supposed to promote longevity. It boosts your metabolism. It is something that you need to have more of in order to have a higher quality of life, in order to avoid a lot of the aging issues that we have today, like insulin resistant. And if you want to be able to tolerate more food after your carnivore journey, like other than just animal food, you do need to have more lean muscle mass. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, it will be natural, it will be okay if you were to gain a little bit of weight in the beginning part of your carnivore journey, especially if you come from a background of very unhealthy eating, very low calorie restriction. You didn't nourish yourself properly with protein. When you go into carnivore, you would naturally eat higher protein. Even if you don't eat higher fat, you eat higher protein. You would gain more lean muscle mass without doing a lot of resistant training. So naturally, you will see the scale go up a little, but you cannot be sure that it's fat that you're gaining. So in my case, if you look at the photos that I'm about to show you, I'm gonna append it through as I'm talking. I did look a lot more curvaceous on my lower body, my glute area, my thighs. It became more shapely. My upper body also looked a little bit, a little bit more, not just defined, it has a shape to it. I have shoulders, it looked more obvious. So I knew that at the point of time I was putting on muscle. If I was putting on fat as well, I guess I was fine with it, because I knew that in the early stage I needed to heal. I needed to regulate back my period, and I needed to, on top of the fact that I didn't want to lose the physique that I've built before. So I stumbled upon things like body recomposition, reverse dieting. Reverse dieting means how do you build back up from eating like very low 1,000 calories a day, building it back up to 1,008 and 2,000 calories a day. If you've damaged yourself, there are some sacrifices that you need to make temporarily in order to build it back up. So I was more focused about body recomposition, meaning the distribution of the muscle is, okay, first of all, is to increase my lean muscle mass and to not obviously gain a lot more fats. So through higher protein, a lot of resistant training, doesn't mean heavy weights. You can use resistant bands, right? Resistant training means that you train your muscles to kind of a muscle fatigue, where you tire out your muscle, that kind of training. It will promote that. So I did look a lot more muscular, but I also knew that that was what I have to go with in order to have overall health and wellness. So it's not about looking fit and lean and then you feel so shit on the inside or other aspects of your life. So I was trying to find that balance. So I would sometimes do higher protein and sometimes do higher fat. So how did I come to my final body composition where I'm super happy is that when I started loosening up my rules, where I don't really just focus on numbers, and I try to go with how I feel and follow my cycle. Whenever my cycle is near, I will eat higher fat, and then I will fast very naturally without going with a schedule. And that is when I noticed my body started to trust me. And towards the late of 2020, you will start to see that my body was still somewhat of the same size, but it's just a lot leaner overall. It's not like super lean like what I did, when I was doing extreme calorie restriction back in 2014 and 2016. It's just an overall healthier looking fit body with the right curves that would give me that feminine look. Yeah. And that is what I had to learn, that this is how my body likes it. And the moment I aligned with that, everything else worked out pretty well for me mentally as well. Let's talk about now, which is a very quick one, obviously. I'm still on higher protein. This is only because when I was doing carnivore at the beginning, when I did very high fat, I was neglecting the minimum required protein that I need to have for my height and my body weight. I learned all about this from Dr. Ted Naiman and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. If you don't know about them, please be open-minded and hear them out. I'm not saying that higher protein is good for everyone, but I think that prioritizing protein and being very aware of how much protein you need at the minimum baseline for your weight and height is very important. When you go low protein or when you don't eat sufficient protein, that's when it's going to trigger a lot of issues that you don't want to have. Even things like not having enough sleep, your mood stability, and especially when you don't eat enough protein, that is when you start to crave for other food, junk food, sweet sugar. So prioritizing protein, eating sufficient protein based on your physique, it's the most important. Yeah. So this is the end of this video, and I hope that my sharing would help you in some way. I know a lot of you wanted to know, how carnivore can improve your body recomposition and how it's going to help with weight loss. I guess you need to be very patient, and I know that it's easier said than done. Being patient is really not something that a lot of us have the discipline or the willpower to have in place all the time, because we often want instant result, and when we are so in that moment, we just tend to criticize ourselves more, and then that is when you really push yourself to want results even faster. For me, it's quite a journey. I guess my learning point is when I try to be too drastic and very impatient with my result, I would do very extreme things, and that is when I notice the cons or the negative effects are going to come back even harder. So but when I do it properly and learn to trust my body, and really think about healing first, you just become a bit more accepting mentally, and things become a lot easier for you to embrace during this whole body recomposition journey. So it's not that I've seen somebody else's video and they got this result and I'm just going to follow exactly what it is. I think all of our journey are very unique, and I think with me sharing with you what I did since I was in my early 20s up to today, I hope that it gave you some light or somewhat of a tip to assist with your journey. So if you guys have any questions for me, let me know, DM me, post a comment below. Please like and share. It will really help me a lot, since my YouTube channel is still very new. So I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Bye.